Hello and welcome to our live webinar covering the bespoke learning materials for the Earth Prize. My name is Peter McGarry. I'm the founder of the Earth Foundation in Switzerland, and that is the home of the Earth Prize. I'm joined today by the Firefly production team to look under the hood at the creation process of these bespoke learning materials. But before we talk to that team and before we go any further, let's just give a little progress update. So the Earth Prize is a truly global competition, and we are now excited to say we have schools from over 35 countries signed up, and with many more to come, we hope. We are very happy to announce that the fourth member of our adjudication panel has now been confirmed. That is T.S. Paudiel, the former education minister for Bhutan. This brings a totally different but valuable perspective, and one that we're delighted to have. Finally, we are currently interviewing for our mentorship panel. These are university level students from top universities around the world who are volunteering to mentor all participants in the Earth Prize. We're very excited. We've got candidates from bachelor to PhD level, and it's still not too late to apply. So today's webinar, it's about bespoke learning materials that we're creating for the Earth Prize. Well, what exactly do we mean by that? In many of our discussions with teachers across the globe, they've spoken about the lack of sustainability on curriculums, about the fact that educational syllabuses haven't been able to keep up with the facts on the ground, and this, quite frankly, has led to frustration. We heard these frustrations and we decided to create learning materials to fill that gap. The backbone of these materials are a series of short videos. These videos can be used in a classroom setting as part of extracurricular clubs or for students to view at their own leisure in their own homes. These videos are broken down into three categories. Firstly, we cover the key concepts of sustainability so that every student, whether a 13-year-old from Ethiopia or a 19-year-old from Hawaii, has a firm understanding of key sustainability concepts. Secondly, we have what I like to think is the magic sauce. That's the Changemaker videos, where we interview inspiring individuals from around the world, young people who have started tackling the problems in diverse locations and fields. I firmly believe that any participant who views these videos will be inspired and come away with a, I could do that as well, type of attitude. One of the key problems facing us all with regard to environmental sustainability is how impossible it feels for any one individual to have an impact. I strongly believe these Changemaker videos will solve that problem. The last set of videos are where we ask these Changemakers, what are the real world skills that the Earth Prize participants need? Things that most schools around the globe just don't cover in their day-to-day syllabus. Okay, so I've spoken more than enough. Let me pass over now to Nathan Quintanilla and his team at Firefly Productions. Nathan, over to you.
Thanks, Peter. First off, let me say thank you to everybody who's here. Firefly, us, we're very delighted to have you, and we're very delighted to be part of something so important as the Earth Prize, and something that I firmly believe is going to be very impactful. In fact, yeah, I started Firefly sort of to make amends of a past career in the oil and gas industry. And I wanted to put my efforts into something that that would have a positive impact. And you know, obviously partnering with an organization like the Earth Foundation is exactly the type of work that I wanted to be doing. Now, thinking of these bespoke learning materials, it might sound simple at first hand. It's, you know, make some videos that teach people about the environment and the situation, but it's really massive. It's a massive undertaking. It's a massive challenge, because the moment you start talking about it, well, what is you know, what's wrong with the environment? Oh, well, it's you know, there's smog in the sky, there's pollution. Well, what kind of pollution? Everything very quickly just cascades into a million different places where pollution comes from, and why, and when did it start, and how did we get here, and what do we do about it, and whose job is it, and is it us, is it governments? I mean, it's really, it isn't easy. but we've put a lot of effort and gotten a lot of expertise, and we've partnered with a lot of people to figure out the best way to do that. And it's not just going to be me talking to you today about some of the things that we've done. You know, I have some of my team members here with me who are also going to do that. And we can't mention everything because there's, you know, that would just take forever. But we're going to try to mention some really important things, and some things that we hope ideally that you'll find valuable and see how, you know, it's really going to elevate the quality level of the content that students will have access to. So before we keep talking and doing all of that, I think what probably makes the most sense is to give you all a little bit of context by showing you a couple of video clips. And we're going to show two today. Now, as Peter mentioned, we kind of have the sustainability focused videos. And what these really are we're calling them concept videos. And there's 4 videos. There's interconnectedness about the Earth and its systems, the Anthropocene, sustainability, and then transitions. And so I think you're going to see a clip today from interconnectedness, which is about the interconnectedness of the Earth and its systems and the life that's on the Earth. And then the other video you're going to see is one of the Changemaker videos, and we're going to hear a bit from Boyan Slot, who started the ocean cleanup project, I think it's called. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and cue those up, please.
If I told you that this glass of water was polluted, would you drink it? Or if I told you that this same water is as old as the universe itself, would you believe me? And if I told you that an entire river's worth of this water had its course changed by wolves, would you believe it? The universe is endlessly interconnected. Nothing has been added, and nothing has been taken away. Our water isn't just water. It is a story, a living history of everything. 13.7 billion years ago, an explosion brought the entire universe into existence. Both time and space were born, and the never-ending journey of this glass of water began. Stars were formed from floating clouds of hydrogen. Heavier atoms were made inside of their cores, and oxygen appeared. And hydrogen atoms met with oxygen atoms in an endless dance of collisions, resulting in water molecules. The very same water molecules that are floating in this glass of water.
So looking back at the journey we went through, it pretty closely approximates just one long series of near-death experiences where it was, several times we came close to running out of money, which is really, we had many tests that failed, of course. So we had quite a large number of low points. Actually, the largest one was when our multi-million first ocean cleanup system broke into 2 in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. That was really tough. Most things fail because people give up too early. You know, just small failures along the way. It's part of the game. You know, when you're trying to do something new, obviously there's going to be things that don't work out the first time.
That was fantastic. Nathan, Alban, the director, unfortunately can't be with us today, but maybe you can speak quickly about, what exactly is involved in directing a project of this size and the scope.
Sure. So Alban de la Chanal is a French film director, creative director at Firefly, and as Peter said, unfortunately, he wasn't able to be with us today, but I did get a chance to talk to him and sort of get some snippets from him that I'm happy to share with all of you. So there's there was a couple of things at hand, really. You have to think about how do we know that video is going to be it can be a great tool at teaching, or rather at entertaining, but how do we also use it to teach? How do we entertain but also educate. You know, a lot of times videos, I mean, you're really, you know, you don't have to worry about, say, the cognitive sciences behind, you know, using video as an educational tool. And so that's one of the things that we had to consult with some people about. You know, what does the cognitive science research say about how to use videos? And the main takeaways from there had a lot to do with video length. The research kind of showed that engagement after, on the long end, for about 8 to 9 minutes really starts to fall off. So we knew we didn't want any of our videos to be any longer than that. But that also kind of had the benefit, I think, of thinking about the age of the consumers, of the viewers, their students. They have busy lives, you know, maybe, you know, they're involved in extracurricular activities, or, you know, they just have something, you know, they're busy, they have something they might rather do. We needed it to be in a digestible format. You know, I think these videos are going to do a lot of good, and these students we're going to, you know, get them really engaged and involved. But if they don't watch it because it's too long, then we're not really doing anything. So that was one thing, is making sure that we got the length right, and I believe that we have. You know, thinking about the length, knowing that we only have these videos, it also kind of made us think about how to segment everything. You know, you could talk about the environment for 2 or 4 or 6 or 8, 12 hours, right? You know, there's so much there to say, but how did we, you know, break that down into, again, a more digestible and understandable format? And with the concept videos, there's sort of like the big breakdown, which was the concept videos. And then you have the changemaker videos, which is hearing about their stories and hoping to, you know, get people, the students, interested in seeing, like, I could do that. And then the skills videos. So there was the big segmentation. And then on the conceptual side, there was also, you know, breaking things down into sort of these, again, sort of large macro pieces about the environment. Anthropocene, how did we get here? Interconnectedness is, what is the state of, what is the system that we're all living and working in? Defining what sustainability is, but also a big part of that was what it isn't. And then how do we transition from here? So it was really just about, I think, trying to break it up into sections. And then the other part was balancing that education and creative. And one of the ways that we did that, and I remember talking to Peter kind of early on about this, is I was like, we're never going to be able to educate on everything. It's just not possible. There's no way, even in long video, it would be too much. So we kind of defined, like, what are the most important things within each video that we feel like we need to get across, and then kind of assembled our narratives and our storytelling around that. I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to say. I mean, there's a bunch of little things, you know, if you look in the video, we wanted to try and engage them, not just because something looks pretty, but also, you know, interconnectedness. She's asking a question of the audience. If you drink this, you know, if you knew this glass of water was polluted, would you drink it? Like, they kind of get a very visceral reaction. And we wanted our language to also be very inclusive. You know, we wanted it to be I's and we's and us. We didn't want the piece to be something that was, you know, for lack of a better way to put it, and an old person telling a young person what to do. We wanted it to be young people talking to other young people about how we need to do something about this, or this is the situation. So I think that I hope I answered your question pretty well, Peter. But there was more than that. I mean, I think at every level, you know, there was so much thought and consideration and other professionals in science and all this stuff put into it. In fact, I think Nathalie can tell us a little bit about what we did on the production side of things.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Nathan. On the production side, so first, when we start the project, what we really had on mind was the word diversity, because we knew that the project was touching schools around the world. And for us, we, like as Nathan said, we didn't want to have someone talking down to the student, but talking to the student instead. So what we did is we cast young people to explain the concept. And we really wanted the student to feel connected and related to the person who was giving the information for us. It was really important. But also, and Jesse will talk a little bit later about the change makers, but the casting of the change makers, we had the same approach. We wanted to represent a large diversity of cultural origins, and we wanted also the age to match the students, again, because we want the student to feel empowered by what they are saying. And secondly, yes, from the team and people we collaborate with, it was also a huge amount of diversity there, because we had teams coming from all around the world for filming the change makers. And also in different skills, we collaborate with writers and researchers and professors at the university. So all the content has been we've been mentoring by professor to make sure that we will be like delivering the best content, the quality of the information, and double checking all the facts that feature in the video. So yeah, definitely diversity and quality were like the main keyword for us while working on the video.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Thanks for saying that. I mean, we might be filmmakers and storytellers, but we're not climatologists. So obviously, partnering with people who was a really important part of getting this right. In fact, Nathalie, I'm sorry, I didn't even introduce you. This is Nathalie Ishak. She's a senior producer at Firefly. And that is a great segue into introducing the next person you're going to hear from, Jesse Hazell. Jesse is sort of our, I guess you could say, in-house expert when it comes to things human related. She has a background in studying anthropology, and it was really her task to, some of the change makers, some of them might have told their story a lot, and some might not have told it at all. But we wanted all of them to be as relatable as possible to the students. So maybe Jesse, you can tell us a little bit about what did you do to try and make these change makers relatable so that the students could be as inspired as possible by them, but also to sort of suss out maybe even some of the struggles from their journey, so that it was clear they didn't just go from point A to point B, with the snap of a finger.
Sure. So I guess one of the first things I thought about was, obviously, all the people we're interviewing have done some incredible feat. They've achieved something. And for a young person, that can feel quite not very doable at their current age. So as we've mentioned already, we did go with younger contributors. So that already makes them a lot more relatable. They're on their level, they're talking to them. But really, when you think about being relatable to someone, we relate to little things, the things that make us really human. Maybe your parents have the same career, or maybe you've got the same passion, same hobby, things like that. And one of the big things that does make them relatable as well is the struggles they go through. If you can see someone that's achieved something incredible, but you realize that it wasn't just snap of the fingers, I did this amazing thing, that actually it took a journey. It took a long journey. It took a lot of defeating, a lot of hills to climb. Then hopefully that young person, that potential change maker, can be like, actually, I can see myself in this person. I'm capable of this, because you see that it takes effort and it does take setbacks, but you keep moving forwards. And one thing I really wanted to get across was that this person isn't just the amazing thing they've created or the amazing thing they've achieved. They want, what everyone else wants as well. One of my favorite answers. So I went with a few questions that tried to bring that relatableness out in these people. And one of my all-time favorite answers was from Kisan Chan. He's from Rice Inc. And he's currently in Hong Kong. So he's split between Hong Kong and London. Rice Inc. is all about reducing rice wastage, reducing food wastage, but also getting better pay, better treatment of farmers. And when I asked him, two of my favorite questions to ask was, what do you want to achieve and what are you proud of? And I'd always ask, it's a double barrel, which is, what do you want to achieve on your project and what do you want to achieve for you? And Kisam answered, I just want to be happy. And it was so simple, really, but so heartwarming, and just I think we can defy anyone to say that they don't ultimately just want to be happy in what they're achieving and just being happy in life in general. And it was the same when I was talking to Sam from Coral Vita. He's based in the Bahamas. They grow coral on onshore, on land coral farms, and then they transplant it into coral reefs and rebuild them. And he had so many setbacks. It was incredible. So many setbacks, so many struggles, everything from diseases for the coral disease came in, storms, like, my goodness, I can't even list all the things. And ultimately, though, he just wants to, you know, be happy, have a family. And yeah, it was just incredible. His answer was, at the end of the day, I just can't see a world where there isn't coral. And yeah, although they're called interviews, I try to treat them more like we were just chatting over coffee, if you can do that over Zoom.
Sure, yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for that. I'm kind of reminded, what, just sort of ad-libbing quickly here, I really liked one of Boyan Slot's answers when he said, I think one of the things he said was something like, what's your goal for the ocean cleanup project? And I think that he said, for us not to be necessary. You know, I was like, that's such an amazing answer. It's like so obvious, but you just wouldn't even think of that. You know, I think, you know, I think, Peter, I think you're right. I do think there's a lot of magic in what the change makers are going to say. I mean, these are young, just passionate people who care immensely about what they're doing. You know, some of them have just they've sort of been like, you know, I'm young, and now is the time to sort of devote my life to something bigger than I am, because later it's going to be harder. They're super inspiring. I'm sure that the students who watch it will also feel the same way. I can't wait to start hearing how this is going to go, or rather feedback from them. I know. I think that is there anything else I forgot to say? I don't think so. I think we pretty well covered it. I think all of your just trust me. Your students are gonna love it. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Go ahead, Peter.
Should we open it up to questions? We have a few. The first one isn't really a question, it's more a message from Sarah Estelle. So she says, this is not really a question, but I want to tell you anyways. Love your materials already now, congratulations. I'm looking forward to seeing more of this educational content. It's entertaining but serious. Rich in content but digestible in length, blunt and honest, but not playing with fears. I love that you focus on the diverse we. I'm sure that will be beneficial for our transition. Thank you. That's very, very nice. So thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
And I have to say, you know, I'm very excited personally to, you know, get feedback from students and teachers around the world when they see these. Okay, here's a question, which is a really on-point question. So who are the change makers that are featured and how did you select them? So maybe Jesse is probably best positioned to answer this.
Yeah, so who are the change makers? Well, we've got 9 of them. They're all, maybe I'll start with, how do we choose them? Okay, so obviously we've mentioned already some of the process we were thinking about, you know, wanting to make sure they were relatable, they were young, that we've got diversity in terms of geography, diversity in terms of culture and background. And that was something I really thought about. But I also noticed that our final 9 were not everyone that we spoke to during the process. And it was really difficult we spoke to so many incredible people. And I mean, Peter, you know, every time we checked in, I was like, oh, I'm going to buy a ticket and go there and help those people. I nearly bought a plane ticket after every interview to keep myself literally grounded. But all these people, when I was talking to them, I noticed common threads that came through. And a lot of it is that environmental issues are very much rooted in social issues and cultural issues. When I say cultural issues, like cultural backgrounds and how we have to move forward into like a more in a different direction. And there is, you know, problems of social change alongside that. So it was really interesting as well. One thing I started to think about was all the different social climates and changes that people were having to deal with at the same time as trying to make their change in terms of environmental and climate. So that was also something I really thought about when I was thinking about how to select them. I wanted to have someone for everyone. I wanted every single 13 to 19-year-old that watches these to see themselves in one of those change makers. As long as they can see themselves in one of those change makers, then they know they can make the change too. So we have a real diversity and range of people. I think about, okay, I'll maybe name a few. So we've got Louise. Louise is the Cacao Project, and she's based in the Philippines. Louise was just incredible. So passionate about what she does. She grew up in Swansea as well as the Philippines, so she also has this really great sort of dual perspective of living in Wales and living in the Philippines. Her project is all around sustainable farming and the cacao tree. So she got to take what she's learned about agriculture in both countries and the way that culturally and socially people view farmers, and she's really taken that on board as part of her perspective, which I love. We've got Ben Stern. He's based in Florida in the States. He's working on basically plastic-free bathroom products at the moment. They're called Nobu. So do check him out. You can buy his products as well, which is amazing. And he started when he was 16, which is just incredible. And then one of my favorites, just because I think he's so poignant, is he's called Lisane, and he's from Kenya. And his project is called Trees for Goals. He is only 16 years old, and he started out with just a simple idea. Every time he scored a goal in practice or he scored a goal in a match, he planted a tree to combat deforestation in Kenya. Then that quickly escalated to 11 trees per goal, because there's 11 people on a football team, and it takes a team to score, and it takes the world as a team to make a difference. And that's just growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And he ended up going to the UN. So it's just, from a simple idea, he allowed it to grow, and he got excited about it to grow. So there's a real diversity in our change makers, definitely. And yeah, I mean, definitely on a slight tangent there. Sorry, I get so excited about this.
Yeah, listen, that's fantastic, Jesse. I'm excited to see the rest of the videos. So, okay, we have another question from Jacqueline. How do you determine the duration of the videos? So, Nathan, you essentially answered that, if I'm right, in the sense that you went out there and you found experts, and this concept that beyond 8 or 9 minutes, you know, people just lose focus. She also asked the question, the different modes of education. I just want to touch on one thing here, which is that, you know, these videos are really the backbone of the material that we're trying to create, but they're not the only thing. We also have quizzes, we have written supporting materials. So there's a lot of other, you know, learning materials that go hand in hand. But I think the videos will be the backbone, and I can definitely see them being the launch pad for conversations in classrooms.
If I could sort of add a small thing to that, you know, there was the issue of length, and obviously, as I said, you know, we don't want them to be too long, but we also didn't want them to be too long for the lives of these young people. There was another word that kept coming up, which is cognitive load, and you could really feel like when you had, my point in saying this is almost, you had to be very selective of how much education you tried to put into one of these videos, because you could very easily get to a point where there was too much and they don't remember anything. But one of the other things that came out of our, I hate to say our research, because we didn't do the research, we read the research that actual scientists have done, but in our the discovery, if you will, was how much you know, if you say something on the screen and you also have a word on the screen as well, or if you have other information, say around the video, like on a page, all these sort of, I don't know, dual inputs or multiple inputs of similar information continue to sort of reinforce certain things. And that's why, you know, in addition to just the videos, there's all other materials, there's stuff people can dive into if they want to go deeper. And so it's sort of like a very holistic, it's not just the video, it's really the whole thing is I think part of the educational component. Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
No, thank you. So we've got a number of questions. I'll do my best to try and go through them. Will the learning materials be accessible worldwide to any student for free? 100%. The idea with the Earth Prize is, it's free for any teenager to, enter a team. And the idea of these materials that we're talking about today is it's kind of the value proposition for maybe a very busy, stressed teacher or school to say, yeah, I'm going to make the effort to sign my kids up to this prize because I'm going to have something that I can use in the classroom that maybe you don't have access to already. But it's all 100% free, and you can pre-register now at our website. There's a few other questions here that I'll just quickly touch on. Are you thinking of translating the videos into languages other than English? 100%. So our idea was year one with the reimagined Earth Prize, we would be solely English, and then hopefully in year two, we're going to add Spanish and other languages. So I'm not sure who should answer this one on your team, Nathan, but they're raising a good point here. So how are you going to make sure it's encouraging a proactive attitude? Your material is very action-based. I find myself watching material I find repetitive and always about similar issues, raising awareness, but not pushing action. I like this prize because it feels different and great hopes, but a little wary. So to somebody who, before they sign up won't have seen these materials, what would you say about this wariness, that this is more repetitive?
Well, I would say that the first 4 videos are educational and the next 9 videos are about people who are out there taking action right now. And I would say, there's a lot more action than just, there's more action than anything else. And then even in, in all of the videos, we were very cognizant of the fact that, when I say all the videos, I mean, like these 4 conceptual videos, we didn't want it to be all, doom and gloom and all depressing, about how horrible everything is. And, we tried to make sure, I think in each video, it kind of ends on a positive action oriented note. I know at the very end, I think it's the transition video. It ends with the presenter saying, basically, we can do this. We can, he actually says something like, we can have a society, we can have a world that has never existed before. We have a tremendous opportunity ahead of us. And we treated it really as, this is an opportunity to build a better life. This is a great opportunity in a way. And I think it was very sort of poignant because it's a, one of the things we talked about related to this, one of the things we talked about is like, challenges sometimes are, that those are opportunities, right? To improve and to make things better. And in some ways you can think like the climate crisis is potentially the greatest challenge that the humanity's ever faced, but could also at the same time be the greatest opportunity, to make a massive improvement. And so I would say it's really inherent throughout the videos. The idea of action and the idea of going out there and doing something is omnipresent, especially just, and once you see the changemakers talk, like they're out there doing stuff. They're not talking about, I might go do this, like they're doing it, and so it's one of those things too. I think it's like, not trying to take so long to answer this question, but one of the things that I remember we said, is it's a lot easier to join like a movement in progress than it is to start one. And when you can see that there's already people doing things, there's already a momentum, you can get the feeling that you just have to join it yourself,
Thanks, Nathan. So we have 2 more questions that I'm going to roll into one really, because they touch on similar things. So first from Sarav is, how can innovators and mentors credibly promote a sustainable agenda to an audience that may not understand it? Will students be able to ask individual questions? will videos also bring solutions to issues students may encounter in their journey? So the idea with the mentors, just to touch on that, is, these videos and the content that goes with them, the idea is we want to educate and we want to inspire. But like you say, there may be questions that if anything, we've opened up a can of worms, and our participants have more questions. And that's where we figured that we needed this pool of mentors from around the world, from university students who are a little bit older, who are passionate, and who are studying a variety of different fields, that they can step in there. And if a participant asks a question, there's somebody who's hopefully more qualified, perhaps than their own teacher or somebody in their own school, to help them answer that. So we think there'll be this great interaction between these materials that we've created and between the mentors who can take it to the next level. So I hope that kind of touches on that.
Maybe it's also worth mentioning that we have the 4 concept videos, the 9 changemaker videos, and then the last 4 videos are skills videos, where we try to think like what is very realistic advice from these changemakers who are already done it and failed, that they can failed and struggled, that they can impart on the students. And it's things like how do you find a mentor, or how do you build out a team, or how do you a lot of it is just like super practical stuff that you wouldn't necessarily get at school. And so I think that's also just another sort of source of the that.
Okay, so I think I'm looking at the time. We're close to 40 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up pretty quickly. Here's another question, though. Again, it doesn't really touch on what we're talking about today, but I'll answer it anyway. Creating groups is tricky. How will you know that submissions are only from young people and perhaps professionals helping? As a teacher, what do you expect from us to ensure it is fair entry? So we do have extensive rules on the website. If you take a step back, the Earth Prize is about young people coming up with solutions to problems they're passionate about. If they get help from teachers or from parents or from mentors or anyone, really that should be encouraged. It shouldn't be frowned upon. We care about the solutions. The teams will have to go through a rigorous process if they get into the finalist section, where there will be a live Q&A with the adjudicating panel. And I think the adjudicating panel are more than qualified to root out kids who've plagiarized, who really don't understand what they've submitted. So it's not something I'm worried about at all, to be honest. This is one, Nathan, for you, and then maybe we'll wrap it up pretty quickly. Do you have skills video on the topic of debunking myths? And this goes to, we had to draw the line somewhere. Oh,
we talked about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, well, we didn't. We kind of, I remember we sort of talked about that, like, well, what about, some of the controversies around climate change, or misinformation that might be out there. And I think at the end of the day, what we sort of decided was that's not the fight, that's not the battle we're fighting. We know it's out there, and obviously, like, we're not trying to fix that issue with the Earth Prize. We're sticking to the science. We're going with the scientists. We're operating on that level, and that's sort of, we tailored the content as if that's not, if that's not an issue, because I don't, when I say I don't think it is, what I mean is, like, we're focusing on the science. We're following the scientists. We're talking to the climatologists, and that's the direction that we're going. That stuff probably does need to get addressed by somebody, but not necessarily the Earth Foundation.
Okay, I think we've gone on long enough. I want to thank Nathan. I want to thank Jesse. I want to thank Nathalie. It was great having you all on, and hopefully, and some of the comments have said that this has been very helpful. I agree. I really think people are going to have to see and use these materials before they really appreciate how valuable they are. And that will come from the 1st of September. So 2 quick action items to end with. Number 1, go visit our website, www.theearthprize.org. It's free to sign up. Any questions, send us an email. We're very happy. We've talked to schools all around the world. We're very happy to talk to your school. The other thing is, as amazing as the materials that Firefly have creating, we don't want to stop there. We want to keep adding more content, that it becomes a richer experience. With that in mind, we're probably going to launch a crowdfunding campaign in coming weeks. So keep an eye out on our social media handles, and maybe you can help support that. So Nathan, Jesse, Nathalie, thank you so much.